Hello, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to welcome guest Jennie Wright to the podcast today. So in this episode, we are going to really dive into automating your lead generation process for consistent and reliable business growth. And if a little bit of that sounds foreign to you, that's okay. We are going to break it all down today. And she just is filled with so many different insights and advice. It's a great episode. I'm excited for you to listen to it. And a little background about Jennie. So Jennie Wright is an expert in email list growth. And you know that I love talking about email list growth. She is also an expert in lead generation with over a decade of experience helping business owners achieve their marketing goals. She is the creator of the list injection method, which you're going to hear her talk about a little bit. This is a system that uses inbound attraction and permission marketing to help clients and audiences generate leads. With a track record of facilitating over 375 list builds, Jennie has a deep understanding of the essential steps to creating events that not only attract ready buyers, but also build trust and engagement with audiences, which is just so critical for not only attracting people to your business, but then getting them to want to work with you. So Jennie's mission is to empower business owners with intelligent and authentic marketing, lead generation, and business growth strategies that drive bottom line results. She is a sought-after speaker and consultant who inspires audiences with her expertise, passion, and practical advice. Let's get into our conversation. Welcome, Jennie. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
It feels like 5 minutes since we spoke. I love you, Whitney. You're amazing.
We had our little check-in before and covered a wide range of topics, but today we're going to keep it focused for the listeners here. We have a lot to dive into and unpack, and this is such an exciting topic of automation in general and automating our lead generation efforts for more consistent and reliable growth in our business. Like, who doesn't want that?
Completely.
So I think some of what we cover today might be new for some of our listeners. So if you're okay with it, I'd love to just start with some definitions.
Yeah.
Okay. So we mentioned in your bio that you have been involved in over 375 list builds. So what is a list build and how is that different than just like growing your email list with people opting in on your website or a freebie?
Good question. So let's delineate between the onesies and twosies and what I call the list injection method. And so your lead magnet on your website or the lead magnets on your resource page or wherever they live, people who are going to continuously sign up for that over time, I call those onesies and twosies. Now you might get 10 a week, you might get 50 a week, I don't know. But those are over time. And if you have that open all the time, somebody who signs up in January and somebody who signs up in September are going to have vastly different experiences between when they sign up and when you make an offer, right? So if you make your offer annually in November, the person in January, you hope they've been really well nurtured for that entire time, but the person in September is going to have a different experience. So the list injection method specifically is about creating an injection of new leads through a list build. So you're adding not just onesies and twosies, you're adding hundreds, if not thousands, in advance of a launch. Okay. And so you do need both. You do need the lead magnet that adds the onesies and twosies over time because that overcomes the attrition that you have. But the list injection or the lead gen activity of a summit, a bundle, a webinar, or a challenge, those add, again, the hundreds, if not thousands of people to really grow the list before you make a really big offer.
Okay. All right. So it's really about when you're doing launches and you're planning to make this big offer to your list, whether it's a group program or even, you know, if you're still a service-based business, I could imagine even if you're wanting to do a sale or get more people enrolled at a specific time, it's still some kind of event where you're focusing all of your efforts to direct people to a specific offer. And you want to then get as many people onto your email list before that so that you can kind of lead them through that process.
Yes, and even when I was a VA, I would do these list build methods of adding, you know, as many people as I possibly could because I wanted to fill my roster. And I knew that filling a roster felt really cyclical to me. And so I would have these ebbs and flows where I was like, no clients, too many clients, not enough clients, all the clients. And I hated the roller coaster ride. And so I would do these list injections. I would do these things to add in as many people, warm leads, obviously, as possible, so that I could nurture those people and then make a sale. And so it doesn't necessarily have to precipitate a big launch all the time, but you do have to overcome the attrition in your list. So if you send an email and 10 people unsubscribe, you need to find a way to replace and overcome, like have more than the 10 that are leaving. And if you're emailing, some people email every day, some people email once a week, those numbers add up, right?
Yep.
So you need to find a way to overcome that. And sometimes your lead magnet, the onesies and twosies, isn't going to cut it.
Right. Right. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. And just, I feel like we could talk about email list management and unsubscribes and all of that. And that's a whole different topic. But I think there's some folks who may think, well, every time I send an email, I get people that unsubscribe. So I think I'm emailing my list too much. And I want to prevent people from unsubscribing. And we're on video. You're shaking your head.
Oh, yeah. I'm like profusely shaking. Sorry.
Right. It's like focus on bringing more people in. Those people that unsubscribe, they're not your people. Yeah. Right. And it's really more focusing on that growth rather than trying to tightly hold on to people and trying to figure out why these people unsubscribed and stopping emailing people and all of that.
I actually have an unsubscribe hack that actually helps, because even though I absolutely want people to leave my list and go in peace kind of thing, there is a way to slow down the unsubscribes, because a lot of people will sign up for things they didn't know they signed up for. Okay. So they go to your landing page, you're offering, like on your website, which I love, by the way, I wonder why. So they grab your abundant profit planner. Okay. And they've downloaded that. And then all of a sudden they're getting your follow-up sequence. They might have a little bit, if they don't know you and they found that, if they do that, then they might be like, oh my gosh, I don't remember who Whitney is. I don't remember what the abundant profit planner was. I don't remember.
Yep.
I'll hit unsubscribe. So here's the hack. Okay. At the very tippity top of your email, before you go, hey, first name, and you do all your content, put in like a subscript of like, font 11 or 10, right? You're receiving this email because you either subscribed to Whitney's awesome profit planner or that you authorized us to send you emails about ABC, XYZ. You can unsubscribe at any time. Actually, here's the link to do it. And you put that in a little itsy bitsy script at the top. People read that. And funny enough, if you do not put a byline or preview text in your emails, like your email provider, that shows up. Okay. And so if you put that at the top, when they first open the email, that's what they're going to see. That's what they're going to read. And it actually reduces your unsubscribe rate.
Interesting.
So I like to put it on the first email, if not more, or all, that comes after a download.
Okay. That's great. Right. So the delivery email of the download, like they're getting what they asked for, and that's fine. But then as soon as they go into your welcome sequence, for example, or like after a bundle, I do a reintroduction to folks so that, they know like, hey, this is who I am and all of that. But putting that, so it doesn't have to go on the top of all of your emails, but at least for these people that are new coming in. I love that, because then you're just calling it out and reminding folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done it every time. So I should be consistent, but I'm not always consistent with my list, even though I preach about it. So yeah, but I always put it at the top of the email if I've been a little bit of a bad girl at the top, and just be like, hey, this is why I'm emailing you. Yeah. And it really reduces that unsubscribe rate.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I love that. So we're talking about lead generation, and I feel like lead generation can feel like a bit of a slimy word sometimes, because I don't know, like I get sometimes these spam messages of like, would you like to have 100 new leads, in your calendar every month, and I think this thought of like lead generation, you have people going out and just kind of cold calling people and all of that. And I know that this is not at all what we are talking about when we're saying automating lead generation. So after we get this, then we'll get into the tactics, but like what is your definition, or what is the definition that we should be thinking about of lead generation in this context of this conversation?
Conversation creating.
Okay.
Right. So lead gen is not transactional. So what we think as transactional is the spam messages, right? Where if you look at your lead gen as a conversation creation tool and a connection tool versus making it transactional that instantly bypasses the ick. Okay. Everybody gets the ick. We get it from our DMs. We get it from our emails. I mean, if I was to open up my junk folder, I will have instant ick and it will last all day. Right. But if your messages come across as conversational, really high value content, creating a two-way, like an open conversation, and also developing a relationship, that is going to work in your favor. I will instantly unsubscribe if I start getting the ick messages from people, or I'll put them in my junk folder, quite honestly. And so it's easy to overcome. It doesn't always feel so easy. Doesn't mean, sorry, it's simple to overcome, not always easy. And it takes a little bit of voice recognition. Like the way I'm talking to you right now is how I talk to people. It's also exactly how I talk in my emails. Right. And so I make sure that my emails sound exactly how I talk and not a little bit more formal. And I struggled when I first started doing this job, and because I was in corporate. I worked in mining, okay? And mining, I mean, honestly, there's a different dictionary for that bloody job, because you talk so formally all the time, all day long, 9 to 5, formal, come home, and you're like, dear goodness gracious, what the heck? So I had this really big learning curve of going from a really formal style into an informal style. And like a lot of people, the pendulum swung way too far one way, and I had to find a balance, right? And your metrics will always tell you with your email marketing what is working and what's not. So if you're too informal, right? I even went so far as to actually put swear words in my emails. That did not
too far.
Too far. You went too far. And like, insert a meme here. But the funny thing is my list really loves GIFs or GIFs, but I call it a GIF. They love them. They respond to them. I think a lot of people do. And the informal voice. Right. Just how I'm talking to you now. But as soon as I went too far on the, little too familiar side, that didn't work well. I got some real good feedback on that one.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah. I got a lot of people hitting reply and going, excuse me, let me tell you. Oh yeah.
Ooh,
and I'm like, hey, but I responded to every single one of them. I'm like, hey, no problem. Like, I totally get it. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to learn. And I won't be doing that again.
Yeah. Well, and that's like such a great reminder too of what all of this is building conversations with actual people. Like every single quote unquote lead that is coming into our business is an actual person that we hope to work with one day. And so treating them as individuals that are reading your emails. And so when they respond or as they're coming onto your list, like that's a real person that is hoping to get some value from you. And all you're trying to do is open that line of communication and start giving them that value. So I think that's just a great way to reposition our mindset when it comes to this, because, every business, and this is another question, is just, are there any businesses where lead generation isn't something that's important? Or I would think like every business, every kind of service-based business really needs to be focusing on this. But like, are there any businesses out there who are maybe thinking like, well, I don't know that I really need to focus on this so much. Maybe this doesn't apply to me. What would you say to that?
No, I mean, the only caveat that I might have for that is like Apple, right? But they're not like, I don't get promotional emails necessarily from Apple. Yeah. I have a business account with Apple to purchase and lease or purchase software, computers and phones and so on for my business. So I get promotional emails through the business of Apple in that way. But I don't get promotional emails from Apple saying they're having a Christmas sale, because Apple doesn't put things on sale. Yeah. Right. And so their brand doesn't need that per se, but they've set it up that way. Do I know of other businesses like that? Not really. I think I used to work for a company that used to sell wraparound neck massagers. So I was subcontracted. A friend of mine worked with the company. They subcontracted to me. And I was working on that content. If you can believe it, they had like a gazillion email automations. I was writing email automations. So we wrote an email every other day for 365 days. Wow. And we were writing all this content and so on. that company had so much follow-up because they were in different stores and they had different offers, like their coupon offer if you had bought something out of their Costco, Costco location was different than if you bought it out of, like a mattress store, all these different things. Yeah. And so that's an example of a company that you're like, oh, does that need it? Yeah, they do, because they're offering coupons and different products and so on.
Mm-hmm. And they're trying to just nurture their customers, just like we as service providers or course creators or anything like that. It's all the same, and it's necessary for a business to grow, and talking about that consistency. So, okay, so let's just get into it. So what are some of the tools, the automation tools and platforms that you would recommend for people to start capturing and nurturing leads effectively? Like, how do we go about doing this?
Okay, so let's break this down by, I'm going to say not by level of expertise, but desire of complication. Okay. Good. And by complication, I don't mean that in like negative. I mean like adding different things.
Complexity.
There you go. So you can go as basic and as entry level as MailChimp. Okay.
Now, that's where I started.
Yep. That's where I started. Then I moved to Aweber. Then I moved to ActiveCampaign, and now I'm in GHL. But you can start as basic as having something on MailChimp because you're just sending campaigns. You don't need a ton of automations. You're not really selling a plethora of products, right? And so on and so forth. You will outgrow MailChimp, right? And then you might end up at something like ConvertKit, or you might end up at...
Right? Exactly what I did.
Exactly. But that seems like the natural thing is like MailChimp to ConvertKit. And ConvertKit's awesome.
Yeah.
It really, really is. And it has all the things that you need. The only thing I don't like about it is the page builder, which they now call Kit. And that's fine, right? But if you don't need to have complex funnels, ConvertKit's great. It has what you need. And I love that. If you're getting into the complexity, now if we're adding more stuff to it, now you need a more like boisterous program, something that has more bells and whistles. And this is where you have to look at the active campaigns. This is where you're looking at having something like GHL, or high level as they call it, that can add 1 million automations in the back end, right? So as we're speaking right now, I'm actually building out a whole slew of automations, like probably 30 automations in GHL, not only for myself, but for a client that's going to use them to get about $1 million in sponsorships for a conference for next year.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And so that's a lot of automations. Now, not everybody needs that.
Right.
But that's, if you want to do that level, that's what you need. And so at these different levels, you really got to look at what you need. It's like buying a pair of shoes when you're a kid. Your parents are always like, they wiggle your big toe, right? Just to make sure you have enough room to grow. So they're not buying another pair of shoes next week when you grow an inch. And so that's how you should look at your email marketing providers.
Yep.
They fit,
I love that analogy.
but there's a little wiggle room to grow. You don't need keep, okay? You don't need keep when you're first starting out because it's a really big program. It's incredibly Confusion. I still call it Confusionsoft, and it costs a ton of money.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
So again, to start somewhere where you can start somewhere that fits, that you can understand and enjoy the UX or the or how it works.
Yeah.
And if you're, if you have a VA and they send the emails, make sure you understand it too in case they're sick and can do it. And then you can grow as you grow.
Yeah, I think that's great and such a good point. I mean, I tell people, at this point, I'm not a huge fan of MailChimp anyway. And so I'm like, just start with ConvertKit and it will probably last you for a while. But then after that point, if you have to move up to the next platform, by then, if you're outgrowing that platform, you probably have a VA or someone on your team who's helping you do things at this point, and they can help you move to that next platform and set up your automations again and all of your pages and all of that. And so I think that's something to keep in mind too, that as your needs grow, probably your resources will grow and the tools that you have and that you're aware of will grow. And so you don't need to be worrying about, oh, I need all this expensive, complicated software that I'm going to have to all set up and figure out myself. Like if you're a team of one right now, start with something simple, get that going, because it's all about getting started.
Yes.
You know, I think that's like the biggest mistake people make too, is they wait too long to start their email list and to start their list building efforts. And the tech can be really challenging for a lot of people. And it's still going to be challenging. ConvertKit, it's not like any of these are just like, oh, you just press a button and
but
magic.
ConvertKit is really intuitive.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
but you do need to understand like how to set up your first automation and all of that kind of thing. But yes, I agree. Very, very intuitive. I like how it looks, working with it and all of that. But yeah, basically, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
So basically what you need to get started is an email platform, email marketing platform that's going to allow you to build your list from and have people opting into it.
Exactly. And if you don't need to have a separate page builder, right? So a page builder being something that creates the landing pages for webinars, lead magnets, sales pages, and so on. Right. Then you can stick with, and you don't need them to be super complicated. Then you can use something like ConvertKit and use Kit, which is built in for the landing pages. I'm a tech geek. Okay. I just moved to one of the most complicated platforms I've ever used in my life, which is GHL, but it's also fun because I'm like, ooh, I just discovered how to do this today.
Yeah.
But so I was on ActiveCampaign. No problem. Love ActiveCampaign. I've been using it for years. But the price was really starting to climb. Like I had hit that threshold where the monthly cost was like hurting. Right?
Yeah, because did it increase for the number of subscribers you had?
Yes. Yeah. I just crossed a threshold and ActiveCampaign's like, we are doubling the cost on you. I'm like, okay. Like I get it. You run a business, totally get it. But I was just like, ouch. So
yeah, it hurts to be dinged for like your efforts too. It's like, you're doing this great thing for your business and then it's like, oh, man.
Congratulations. You have, 10,000 people on your list. And by the way, your price is going from like $149 to like $2 something rather. And I'm like, come on. So, moving over to something like GHL it took me 3 months to really decide to do it. It's the plan that I'm on is $97 a month, which is a big difference.
Yep.
But you pay for the amount of emails that you send.
Ooh.
Okay. But you pay pennies.
Okay, yeah.
So depending on how many emails you send, and you're not always sending it to the full list sometimes.
Yeah, that's
so you're
true.
not. So I did the cost savings on that and a couple other things because it takes you can get rid of your Calendly, you can get rid of a couple other things, and you go into this platform. My cost savings was exceeding $300 US
a month. Yeah,
I will take that.
Yeah,
because I can put that to something else. I can pay a VA part time to do other things with that cash. So yeah, it made sense for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. And I think, for us, sometimes when I was getting started, I was using the page builder. Even in MailChimp, they had like some basic ones that weren't super great, but I was doing some opt-ins on there. And sometimes for ConvertKit, I'll have an opt-in page, a landing page built on there. But then a lot of times, well, all the time now for our launches, for example, we are building the page. We use WordPress. Everyone who's listening,
your pages are gorgeous.
Thank you. Has heard us talk about WordPress quite a bit, and we can just embed the opt-in form for ConvertKit into that page. So that way, or right now, actually, we have an automation, so it goes from EverWebinar to we have a Zap behind the scenes that's then sending their name to ConvertKit, and then we can follow up with email and all of that kind of thing. So, but when I started, it was just simple. It was just opt in to the webinar on MailChimp. I'll send you some emails and then, you get the link and you're good to go. So yeah, it can be as simple, do it a few times, get your feet wet, and then you can keep adding more tech in. And you don't have to wait years. Like literally you could go from one launch to the next or 1 month to the next, do it once and then be like, you know what? I want to do some things differently and then keep growing. Progress can happen quickly. So
you're so right.
Yeah. Okay, so how can businesses set up these automated lead capture forms and landing pages that do this amazing job of getting visitors to convert more easily?
How is in like the technical how or in the brain power how?
I guess whichever you think is more relevant, like how do we, so we know that this is the software that we need. So what should we do next if someone is hearing, okay, automated lead generation sounds really great, but I'm just getting started. What are some of those steps to kind of move forward?
Good question. I would say it's twofold. One is remove friction, remove barriers. So when one of my clients was starting out brand spanking new, they were like, oh yeah, we're going to ask for first name, last name, business name, phone number, location, and how many years in business and how much do they make? And I said, great, awesome. Nobody's going to opt in. Congratulations. You have made a survey, not an opt-in form. And so, but the client's like, but I want the information. I'm like, but why? Because I want it. No, you want to grow a list of leads. Okay. Yes, you want quality leads, which means if you want that, sure, add a CAPTCHA, okay, to make sure that you're not getting bots. Totally get it. Add a double opt-in if you want. Although I don't like double opt-ins at all. You just made a face. I made a face. Because what happens with double opt-ins is that second email of saying, please confirm that you want to receive emails from Whitney is going to end up in spam, or it's going to get forgotten. And then you're going to have 100 people opt in to go to your webinar and 50 of them are not going to be confirmed. And you can't do anything. You can't email them. You can't do diddly squat. Okay. I was going to use a different word, but we're keeping this PG.
Yep.
Pendulum is not going to swing too far. And you can't do anything about that. So frictionless for me is first name, right? Email address. Yeah. If you want to do a CAPTCHA, do a CAPTCHA. That's on your side. But that's the first thing. The second thing is making sure that if you are doing any form of lead gen, that you are putting your best foot forward, not perfection, because perfection takes way too much time, but your best foot forward in terms of creating really great content that supports solving what seems like a pressing problem. Right? And so with the lead magnets that I recommend that my clients make, it is dynamic. All right. So a PDF download is fantastic, but why not pair that with a private podcast episode, like an audio recording that helps explain the method? Because think about it this way. There are a multitude of different types of listeners and multitude of different types of learners is the word I was looking for. And so adding in things like neurodivergent, non-neurodivergent, people who are listeners, people who are readers, people who are viewers, you need to look at making sure that your lead magnet is going to be understood and enjoyed by more than just one of those learners. Yep. And so the dynamic lead magnets that I love to have clients create are not hard. Again, they're simple. They just take some thought. So PDF download with a little private audio or a video that's like 2 minutes long, not a big deal, and so on and so forth. So that's where I like to push people. Don't just throw, in my opinion, 3 pages of content on a Word doc, right? And then send that. Yeah. It's not branded. Yeah. Just go that little extra step. So that and you know this, I mean, you talk about this kind of stuff all the time, just a little extra step so that your brand speaks a little bit for you and helps you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've said before that your client experience, I think we sometimes focus so much on what we do for our clients once they become clients and how we can make that experience a great experience and all of that. But it starts from the moment that they, quote, walk in the proverbial door of your store, and they are getting emails from you or seeing your lead magnet. And if they're not getting that quality experience and getting that understanding of what your brand is and your personality and seeing that you put in that effort and the value that they're getting from whatever they opted in, then that trust and feeling that they have to work with you is not going to be there. Because if you made this beautiful landing page or even just, had some great copy of what this thing is, and then they trust and put their email in, and then they get something that feels like you just kind of threw it together, they're not going to trust that you are really going to give them the value that they were really hoping to get from you. So yeah, makes total sense. So we're kind of looking at the lead magnets that we have on our websites, and those are always running, and those are great, and we want that to be automated there. But then you also mentioned at the beginning, like these list builds and these more concentrated efforts. And then you also mentioned that these don't necessarily have to be about like a big launch that you're doing. And I think that can possibly resonate a lot more with a lot of our listeners here. Some people are doing big launches. Speaking from launches, they are a lot of work. They are great, but they are also a lot of work. So like, what are some things that have been successful for your clients in the past where it is maybe kind of, where's that middle ground of like, okay, it's not a gigantic launch that we're doing, but it's also not this onesies and twosies type of thing. And what kinds of things work well for that?
What works really, really well, and this is a great question. So we're not looking at the people who are selling a $25,000 mastermind, right? And trying to fill that cohort. We're talking about people who most likely have a service-based business, and they're just trying to keep that client roster full, right? And so, and you can also, in a service-based business, obviously there's a multitude of different ways that you sell. We're seeing a lot of people doing memberships or something that has, or continuous enrollment, right?
Yep.
Courses and so on. And so with having these list build methods where it's like twice a year or 3 times a year, you're adding these multitudes of new people. What it allows you to create is it allows you to have a thoughtful setup for engagement, for relationship building, and so on. And you can sort of tailor things. When you have continuous, like the onesies and twosies, that's all automated.
Yep.
But what I love about having like an injection of new people is then I can create really thoughtful follow-up based on those people, right? And so I can do something like if I just ran a 5-day challenge and I got 300 people to sign up for the 5-day challenge, I can run a workshop right after the 5-day challenge that hints at or discusses my program, product, or service. And leads into that process. Now, not everybody has sales calls, but if you have sales calls, that's the way to do it, in my opinion. It really helps. And so in the way that I look at it, these larger list builds allow you to build trust more quickly. They allow people to get to know you because depending on the type of list build, we're creating a transfer of credibility from one person, wherever they came from, to you, right? Wherever they found you. And if you were on a bundle, and you did that, then they're getting to see you from the host side and they're coming over. And so what we find with a list, like a built up list build, like a list injection, is you're able to create more of that relationship. You're able to overcome this transfer of credibility more quickly, right? And it's more focused because you're probably going to plan out like the workshop or the Facebook Lives or whatever.
Yep.
And that really allows you to build that relationship. And we just see more sales overall.
And you give yourself a little bit more time to plan it out and plan out the runway leading up to it. Who is going to help you promote it? Because I think, and this was a podcast episode I just did recently, talking about how to actually promote your lead magnet, because you can create the most beautiful lead magnet, but if it's not getting in front of people, then it's not helping your business. And so at the end of that podcast episode, if anyone's heard us mention bundles a few times and you're like, what the heck is a bundle? Go back to that episode. We'll link it in the show notes. But doing things like collaborations or just sharing of, I've done like freebie swaps before. So you're planning this event, but then you're also thinking about how can I get the word out? Because it can be to people on your existing list, because I can also see it as a way to nurture people, especially those like onesies and twosies that maybe came in, but they haven't really gotten that full experience with you yet. You can invite them, but then we're also really looking for new people to be coming in, and we need to be finding out, okay, how can we get those people coming in? But you're creating this exciting event that is going to attract people into it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are some ways that you've seen are like great ways to get people to come to this event? Is it those collaborations and bundles and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Getting people to go through a bundle, go through a summit. I love a combination of bundles and summits. And the reason is that bundles people are going to go and see your bundle product, but they're not necessarily going to get to know you, which is why I like a dynamic bundle product. Mm-hmm. But summits, they're going to hear you speak, right? And so what's important is bundles are easy to participate in. You can participate in tons of them, which is great. But summits are going to get people to kind of get to know you because they're going to hear you. And let's not discount even for a second the power of podcast guesting, which can be just as powerful as being on a summit. Yep. And it's continuous.
Right.
Right. So these episodes live in perpetuity. They're out there forever. I'm still getting leads from a podcast episode that I was on 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Okay. So, and that's great. So you have to have this diverse lead generation plan. The onesies and twosies, podcast guesting, if you can get on it and you like it, I love it. Right. Summits, bundles, swaps, anything that's going to network you outside of your current sphere of influence is going to move the needle. And you have, but the key is consistency. And don't burn yourself out by going, I'm going to be on 30 podcasts this month. By the way, bad idea.
And it's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
You have to pitch to so many podcasts to only get a few responses.
I just got one of the worst podcast pitch emails ever this morning because you know what it said in it? Hi, David. We just love your podcast call. And it said, insert podcast name here.
Oh, Lord.
First of all,
okay.
I'm not
Try
David.
a little bit harder.
Try a little bit harder. Maybe a little bit more, personalization would be great. But I mean, podcast guesting is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah. But for all of these, so the way the sequence is going to happen, for all of these, people are going to first be getting onto your email list. And so if you're doing a podcast guest, you're going to want to be sharing, ideally, some kind of opt-in on that episode. Now, if it is timely and this is when your event's happening and you're guesting on a few podcast episodes that are going to go live before your event, then you can talk about that event. But then I would have some kind of plan that if someone listens to the podcast episode 3 years from now, that page redirects somewhere or, sends them somewhere else unless that event has become an evergreen thing. But otherwise, all of these things are getting people onto your email list in some way, but then you are then pitching them to come to this event that is going to warm up people more quickly, right?
Yes. And a lot of people do not do that. A lot of people actually just say, hey, thanks for downloading my PDF. Have a lovely life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I would love to hear your perspective. I mean, obviously this is something that's important to you. You've built your business about it, but I know that for me, building my email list has been just instrumental in my business growing and continuing to have the consistency that I'm looking for and all of that. I can't say enough about email lists and how great they can be.
Neither can I. But the only thing I can say is that I wish I'd done it sooner with more emphasis. I've always been the kind of person that has put other things first. Even today I was just like, before I send out this thing for me and my business, I have to finish this for them. And that is always a conundrum, right? And in service-based businesses, that happens a lot. The best thing you can do is plan ahead. And as soon as you possibly can, get a team member to take it over.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And it can start small. You can have them. And if you're figuring out how to hire someone, I have a podcast about hiring, people to your team. So don't let that stop you too. And because, nurturing your list and having these connection points with people is just so pivotal to have that consistency in your business, because otherwise, what are you doing? You are relying on referrals. You are hoping that the directories that you're listed in are showing your profile. You're posting on social media, and all of these things are just really inconsistent. You really just can't control who's seeing your message, and it's just not the same as being able to be connected with your email box, with your leads email boxes.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up here, any other tips you have to either make this process of connecting with these leads and nurturing them easier or automated, or personalizing it even more and just kind of continuing to make sure that folks are staying on top of this list that they're building?
Segmentation.
Okay.
So depending on the type of lead magnet or list build that you're putting out there, not everybody should go in the same bucket. And I have multiple lead magnets. You have multiple lead magnets. Every time somebody comes in from your profit planner, they're going to go and get tagged with one thing. If they come in through another, they're going to get tagged with another thing. So you automatically know if somebody wants to know about generating more profits, or you know if somebody wants to get more help with building their website, as an example.
Right.
And so do not send the canned email to everybody. It takes 5 extra minutes to refine an email that is specific to the group that you need to speak to, and not alienate the group that you don't need to speak to. So segmentation really, really matters in your list building and your lead generation, and every platform will allow you to do it. Even though it might seem overly complex, it's completely not. It's just a simple tag. And I'm a finicky person when it comes to things like nomenclature, right? I really like my tags to help me understand what things mean and so on and so forth. You don't have to be like me, but you could just say like came in from Profit Planner, or came in through podcast, or so on and so forth. And those things really, really help you delineate who you're talking to.
That's such a great tip, and one that I need to follow. We have the tags. We have so much information about what people are interested in and where they came from, but I will be fully transparent that I have not utilized that at all yet. And I think that's just such a great reminder of, when you can. I think it's like a layer to
Permission.
add on.
Yep, it's permission based. When you can, and give yourself permission. The fact that you haven't, who cares?
Yeah.
Right? So it's just every opportunity, and this is the thing about lead gen and business in general for people like us, we're constantly evolving. It's nonstop.
Yes.
Right. And so, and every time we learn something new and we can implement it. Today, I learned something new about Slack and Airtable. I was like, darn, I had no idea this existed. Sent it to to my team and said, we're doing this now because this is cool. And it'll add a layer, right? It adds a layer of specificity. And every time you can add a layer of specificity or deepening or data or any of those things, it's only going to elevate your business. But don't feel the anxiety and the pressure to do so until you're able to.
Yeah.
Because it's
such great advice.
It's so overwhelming if you do it before you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've fallen into that trap. I always look to like the highest, most multimillionaire like businesses that are just killing it. And I'm like, man, I wish I had, a page that had all of this stuff on my website, and I wish I had this lead magnet. Oh, she's got a quiz and it's so good. Oh, now she released a new quiz. Like it took me a month to come up with my first quiz. Like,
meanwhile, that person has a team of 32 people.
Exactly.
And so, you and your VA. So
Yep. And it's each time you're learning new things, and just exactly what you said, it's a constant evolution, and listening to podcasts like this, even hearing things for the future, ideas for the future, not things that you have to implement today, but how you can see where you could go and how those things can evolve for you. And I guess the final question I have before we talk about how people can actually get more from you and learn from you is there anything that we can use to inspire folks to go down this path? Are there any like success stories or things that you can think about clients you've worked with where this has just worked out like really well for them?
I have a really good example. So I have a client, Julie, and 3 years ago, she wanted to retire her husband from his job, move to a South American country, and start a new life. That was her goal.
Sounds wonderful.
It was. But up until that point, she'd never had a consistent income month. Now, she is a service-based provider. She sells templates, she does websites, so on and so forth. And she had never had a consistent month. So we actually ran a summit. We ended up with, I think, about 1,900 registrants. It's not bad.
Yeah,
then
that's great.
That person had the most amazing, like the biggest sales month they've ever had in their entire business. They've been in business for, I think, 3 or 4 years. So they had a 10K plus month. Okay, between VIP sales and they sold templates and so on and so forth. The residual effect of that summit meant that person had consistent 5-7K months from there on out. Which she then compounded by having another summit 6 months later. Now that went to consistent 9 and 12K months, which meant she was able to retire her husband and moved to the South American country.
Wow.
And she was able to do it because she was able to create consistency. If you were to add, like tomorrow, if tomorrow you added 10,000 people to your list and that equated to 200 new customers, but you're not set up to handle 200 new customers,
yeah,
you're going to lose your you know what, and you're not going to be able to handle it. If you have a list injection, spring and fall, okay, and then you're able to convert a certain percentage of that, you know, into paying clients or clientele, then you create this like, now I'm at 5K, now I'm at 7, now I'm at 9, now I'm at 12. I can bring on a team, an extra team member. Now I'm at 15. Wow, now I'm at 18, and so on and so forth. And you can start to see these incremental growth, and you can add the team at the time. You can grow the software at the time, and it feels a lot more enjoyable than holy crazy balls, I got to figure all this out.
Yeah. And like, where did, having like a great 10K month, but then being like, where did all these people come from? Are they going to come again next month? Do I need to have more team members? Whereas doing it this way, you're in control, you're in the driver's seat, you're starting to figure out like, okay, if I put this amount of people in through a summit and some other event, I know that roughly I'm going to convert this many into customers right now. And each month after that, I'm going to get another few who are converting because I'm continuing to nurture them and give them more value and all of that. And then when I feel ready to do it again, I do it again instead of just kind of waiting for the universe to provide or not provide.
Exactly. I think I did a whole about 12 months of waiting for the universe. And then I said, why not me? Why is Amy Porterfield making millions and I'm just sitting here wanting to be that person and it's not happening for me? Yeah. Don't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think getting help to do these things, because I was very similar. I was just having not good lead generation in my business. And so I started working with a marketing coach and we started hosting webinars. And so she helped me work through creating the webinar and all of that. And at the time I was still selling through sales calls, and it was great. And it was just a great way to get more people, more eyes on my business and give them some value and just much more predictability. So that's awesome. And so hopefully that story inspired some of you listening out here of just what is possible when you do some of these events, how it's not just that quick infusion of leads, which I think can sometimes be that thing if you go and do something where it's not focused on list building, but you're getting a lot of leads. But this is not just that one time. These are people that are going to stick with you and buy from you, maybe not right away, but months into the future. And that's where that consistency and predictability comes in.
Completely.
Yeah, love it. Well, where do people go to learn more from you and get some help from you, Jennie?
Firstname.com. So JennieWright.com is the best place to go and find out more about me. I'm also really easy to connect with. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Go and find me. There's only a couple Jennie Wrights. So especially in the entrepreneur space, I think I'm pretty much one of the onlys. So come and find me there and just drop me a DM, say hi, connect with me. I love, having people reach out and say, first of all, tell me that you heard me on this podcast. And drop a line and just say, Whitney sent me or something like that. That would be great. I'd love that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jennie. Any final thoughts to add before we sign off?
I can't gush enough about how much I love the way you approach business. And so when the opportunity came up to talk to you and get to know you and be on the podcast and have you on my podcast Acquire, I just jumped at the chance. And I think everybody should be really taking all the lessons that you give to heart. It will help.
You are so sweet. Thank you so much, Jennie. And you've just been such a wealth of knowledge. I'm so excited for everyone listening here and hopefully connecting with you too to learn even more about you and from you. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, what did you think? I thought we just covered so many great topics here, so many great ideas for how to look at your list building and lead generation efforts on this spectrum of things that you can be doing all the time, things that you can be doing a couple times a year, and big events, small events, and just looking at your email list really as this lead generation tool and the many ways that you can be building trust and building that relationship and really warming people up to want to work with you. And it all starts from your email list. And Jennie just gave us a lot of great things to think about, and also how to automate it so that it can be easier for us, because I know none of us want to be spending time manually having to email people and connect with people and do a lot of selling. And when we come at it from a place of providing value and opening up conversations and building relationships, it can feel a lot better to us. And as a result, it can also work a lot better and get our customers to want to work with us a lot sooner, which is just going to be better for your business, for your freedom, for your sanity. Jennie shared that great story about one of her past clients, how it really just changed her business and her life and her ability to actually achieve the personal goals that she had for herself as well. Make sure you check out the show notes to connect with Jennie and get her links. And also, I want to call out another resource that we didn't mention in the show, but this is a free training that she has that really breaks down a lot of what we talked about here. It is the guide to selling from your email list, really to turn your list building efforts into profit and more sales. And she walks you through that step by step. So if you liked what Jennie had to say and really want to dig into this more and learn more from her, definitely go to that link that is in the show notes. And I will see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening.